Gents, I just want to pause the episode for a moment to let you know about the Strong Men of Value Academy. You will have heard me refer to it a number of times, and I want to bring more attention to it. So this isn't just a program, it's a life-changing environment and community of men who are focused on personal and professional growth. We're looking at areas of relationships, wealth, and health, things to help you thrive and maximize your life. Imagine having bi-monthly one-on-one coaching sessions with myself, weekly group coaching calls, and an incredible brotherhood of high achievers by your side. Now we're diving into resilience, leadership, and holistic growth to not just succeed in your career, but to thrive in your health and your relationships. Your journey to greatness, it starts here. So join the movement and you can apply for the Strong Men of Value Academy. You can head to themanthatcanproject.com to find out more. I've got a few interesting episodes coming up where I'm sharing some podcasts that I have been on. So today's episode is a conversation I had with Galla from Mensgroup. So Sean has been on the podcast and I was on his, and we're actually, becoming really good mates now. We catch up every fortnight, which is awesome, just to bounce ideas, perspectives, and chew the fat, because we do have a lot in common. So it's definitely, and we're walking very similar paths with our careers. So it's cool to be able to have a yarn there. Now, in this conversation, we chat about some important things that I feel a lot of you gentlemen will get some value from. The first one being how to not get defensive with feedback. It's an extremely important to discussion and skill to learn. The importance of healthy communication. 3, negative influences versus positive influences in your life. How to learn and gain knowledge from other people's experiences. This one is game changing, right? We can all go through our own experiences, but there's some experiences that you have in life or that others have that you're like, I would love to just prefer to learn from that person rather than go through that myself. And then also the power and the importance of taking ownerships of your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and actions. Some of the key points that we talk about in this episode. You're going to get a heap of value from today, and it's short and sharp as well, so you really enjoy that. Now, I'm on day 24 of the Rose, so body's feeling good, but today was the first day I've actually started cramping, so I really got to dial in everything for this last week. And this Saturday is the finale of the 30 marathons in 30 days, which is, I'm pretty sure, I've reached out to Guinness World Records, and if you go on their website, there is no world record for it. So it's an unofficial world record. So I'm hoping they get back to me shortly. We've documented everything just in case they do actually get back to me. That'll be fucking pretty cool. But the main reasons why we did it, the man Wesley is going to be interviewing me once again for an upcoming episode, just around my learnings, experiences, and everything that I took away from this whole experience. Because once again, it's not about, or for me, it wasn't really about completing the 30. It was more, that it was a challenge, and I've always believed that I could do it, but I knew that I would learn so much, and I wanted to inspire you guys to step out of your comfort zone and try something differently. And as of the time of recording this, we've had 33 people complete a marathon themselves on the roll, which to me is phenomenal. Really, really cool to be able to watch them take their belief in self to a whole new level and get outside their comfort zone and really stretch themselves to grow. So that was fucking cool. And if you haven't checked out the Strong Men of Value Academy, this is where we do most of the growth. We give you the tools, the strategies, the community, right? Our 4 pillars are muscle, momentum, meaning, and mateship. We help you take your life to a whole new level within a supported community. Head over to the manthatcanproject.com/strong men of value to check that one out. And I guess another little freebie, we have a webinar coming up on Tuesday the 28th, which is how to build massive confidence. And you'll hear more about this on Thursday's podcast. But if you'd like to register for that free webinar, okay, head over to my Instagram, head over to the website, or you can see the link in the bio, in the notes here, which will take you there. All you got to do is register, then you'll receive a few emails from me to get on board with that. But trust me, you don't want to miss that. It's all the good, juicy stuff that's helped me take my life from where I was 8 years ago, lost, really hating who I was as an individual, to now believing I can be confident in anything I put my mind to. So, gents, I really look forward to sharing this podcast with you. Remember, if you tuned in for the first time, welcome. Great to have you listening to a bit of a longer format content, which I prefer to all these other platforms that you really have to try and somehow get your messaging done really quickly. So enjoy. Men Can Project Podcast, a podcast empowering career-driven men to live more fulfilling lives. We are here to challenge your beliefs, redefine success, and talk about the important stuff in a relatable way. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. My name's Lachie Stuart. Let's get into it.
Lachie, good to see you, bro.
Sean, likewise, mate. It's good to be back here having another good yarn, as I'm sure it will be.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I'm stoked to have you on the Mensgroup podcast. I was on your podcast a little while ago, and for those of you listening, Lachie and I totally hit it off. He's just one of the guys in the Mensgroup workspace that I think is doing it really well, and we also share a lot of hobbies and stuff. And before this call, we were just chatting about just life and business and stuff, and it turned into a bit of a mastermind, hey?
It was like a geek out session on just what's possible and what's happening, and just how we can reach more men and help more men, which is, I'm still buzzing from it. I can't wait to just continue looking into it after this call, after this podcast. But I'm also very excited for this.
Yeah, it's great. And we actually realized that Lachie would be a good fit for my personal men's group. And so hopefully we can build an even deeper friendship and supportive business relationship there too, man.
It's going to happen. And we were also talking about the surf. I think one day we're going to get a surf trip in. I'll come over and visit, because the surf over here at the moment is pumping on the Gold Coast.
The good news is the bunch of guys in the group surf. Like a couple of guys have been surfing since they were like 5, similar to you. So
Epic.
You'll be in, that could be a fun one, man. I look forward to that. So on that topic of like sphere of influence and community, the importance of community. I mean, it's a perfect segue. We just realized, man, we got to do this more. So why is community so important? I mean, you coach a lot of men, you coach a lot of successful men in corporate positions who are successful in the business world. Why do you see community being so important?
I feel like there's similar to what we went through in the last hour. And the reason why I sort of reached out to you to say one thing that I'm really looking for in my life is people who run purpose-driven online businesses, but run them very well and run them with integrity. And for me, I've been looking, and more so the last month, I've been really looking, because that's been lacking in my life. I've got an incredible sphere of influence around me that are health-focused, that are really lifestyle-focused, great husbands, just great people. But there's some things within where my business aligns and what I'm trying to achieve that's missing. And I've been really lacking that. I'm like, I need to be challenged, because when we're in our own world, we very rarely, or majority of the time, we put these blinders on, right? And we're just so focused and consumed on what's in front of us. And it's Groundhog Day majority of the time, which, when you love what you do, that doesn't really faze you. But there's also so many more things that you can do to be more efficient, to free up time in other areas, or to broaden your reach or improve what you're currently doing. And just from the conversation that we had, I was like, yep, I've been neglecting that, and I've been avoiding that almost because I hadn't had it explained to me in the way that you have just explained it to me. So I feel that when you've got an environment or a circle of influence of like-minded people who are really striving towards similar things, they can highlight those blind spots, that where we can improve, or they can call us on our bullshit as well. Like you called me on my belief that, hey, Instagram's working really well for me, and I don't need an SEO in them. And you're like, can I do this politely? But I want to call you on that. And this is why SEO has worked well for me, and I believe it's beneficial. So for me, that happens in all areas of life. When you think about, for me, the reason why I feel I stay fit and healthy all year round, I don't have the winter bod, the summer bod, the winter bod, the summer bod that some men experience.
Yes.
Yes. Well, hopefully I can raise the frequency there. Yeah. But I hang around people who really prioritize their health. It's a non-negotiable to, be able to keep up with their careers, right? Because they're highly driven, career-focused people, and they understand that having a body and a mind that supports you to do that is extremely important, which means, we still enjoy beers and those things, but minimize the alcohol, prioritize sleep, move your body. Extremely important. So when I feel like having a lazy day and my mate Sam messages and says, I'll see you in the gym at 6, I'm like, all right, I'll go. And that way I'm being held accountable. And then if there's times where I'm not putting in the effort, or if I'm going wayward, or, I might be focused too much on work, they'll bring that up. They'll say, Lachie, I've noticed, you've been missing a few sessions or you haven't been putting in the last couple of weeks. Talk to us. What's going on? Is there a reason for that? Are you more focused on business at the moment, or your relationship, or what's going on? Is there a reason for that? And sometimes there is, which is completely fine. And sometimes there isn't. I've been slack, and they've just held me accountable to maintaining the standards that I know I need to have to get the results that I want in my life. So I feel if you don't have that circle of influence who, one, have the balls to tell you that, two, care about you enough to tell you that, then it's very, very easy to just become very, a passenger in your life. And I don't want to be a passenger. I've done that for long enough. I'm here to be intentional, and a lot of, men that I work with, and I'm sure that are a part of Mensgroup as well, Sean, I don't want to be passengers anymore. We want to be more intentional with the love that we get to experience, the relationships, the conversations that we're having, the experiences that we're having. It's not just up to, hopefully I stumble across this, or hopefully they ask me about that. It's like, I'm the creator of my own life now. Yeah.
And it seems like that creation of your own life through community, that like constantly trying to get ourselves around people that can help us grow into who we want to grow into, whether that just be overcoming a challenge like a relationship issue or porn addiction or something, or if it's like with the conversation you and I just had, just realizing that we can benefit from being around guys in similar industries. It just seems to never end. Hey, like I'm constantly reminded by examples of like every couple months, it's like, oh, right. No, I don't know anything about this. I need to go find people who will be supportive about that thing.
Exactly. And you nailed it, or you sort of brought something up there for me when you said the porn addiction. I remember in the rugby culture, which I used to be heavily influenced by, the culture was after your game, you would get absolutely trashed.
Annihilated.
Like just, absolutely annihilated. And you would chase women for no other intention rather than to probably brag about it the next day or the next at training and things like that. And it was for me, it was a toxic environment because I didn't necessarily enjoy how I was treating people, how I was thinking about myself. But hey, the environment that I hung around, that was sort of like glorified. Like you were the man if you could, win the boat race, which is where you scull beers as fast as bloody humanly possible, or if you could, get with the best looking Sheila at the pub, like you were the king for the week. And then it'd start again on Friday after the match or Saturday after the match. But you're like, for what's the purpose of that? I'm hating myself during it. I'm treating people terribly. And what's the gain of it?
Yeah. And meanwhile, down the street, there's a group of guys who you could enjoy just as much who are like, that's stupid. Why would you ever do that?
Yeah. And it's purely like, it's very hard to, for me, 2014, I knew that I had to separate or build a bit of distance between who I was hanging around and who I wanted to be. I didn't necessarily know, I didn't, have the awareness to go search Mensgroup or search this or search that. Like that wasn't really a thing. So I think anyone even listening to this right now, you're in such a great position to really network with some like-minded individuals. I was roaming around Brisbane, going to business meetups, did speaking Toastmasters. Yeah, did that. And I was trying to find people who were looking for similar things, but there was still some things that weren't aligned. So I was like, where am I going to find someone who likes fitness, but is entrepreneurial, has empathy, and just wants to be a nice person? Like, where do I find that? And once again, I didn't utilize the internet for how amazing it can be. I just did it the hard way and went on foot. And it took me about 2 years to find that one bloke that then has opened up my whole network and my whole world to what's actually possible. And there are blokes out there that genuinely give a shit about themselves, for one, and the men in their life, but also what they can get from everything that they, every day on earth, which for me is just so exciting. Like I said earlier to you, Sean, just that conversation we had earlier, I was like, I need more of this. And I'm getting some of that. Like I've got great friends, as I mentioned, but as I said, I've been really craving people who have very similar vision to what I have. And that's what I need in my life to help me go to the next level, to help me be aware of my blind spots. And hopefully I can add some value to you guys in the community as well.
It's interesting because this isn't just our opinion, the importance of community and the sort of downfalls of not investing in community and finding supportive people. It's actually, there's been a lot of research on it. So apparently negative influence in your life is 6 times more impactful than a positive person. So that really speaks to why this is important. Like, people can be like, oh, that's just how that person is. They might not be supportive of my vision with my business or my relationship, but that's not a big deal. Well, yeah, actually all the psychological research around the subject says that it is. And negativity and unsupportiveness can be very subtle. Like, I watched this with my girlfriend recently, Katie. She's getting into doing her own business because she's always been passionate about this thing. She grew up in the suburbs in the middle of Canada, and she doesn't have any friends from her hometown that like get this part of her, the ambitious part and what she wants to do. And so when she talks to her friends, they think they're being supportive, but the subtext is not supportive. Like when she says, she lights up and explains her vision, and she's doing a podcast and talks about the first episode, and they say, oh, that's cool, but like, what about your benefits as a nurse? And that's the first thing they say. They're trying to be supportive, but they're not actually being supportive of the direction that she wants to go because they're not being emotionally supportive. And so then she ends up hesitating. And, so it was fascinating to sit back and watch how subtle unsupportedness can be and what an impact that can have on a person's life and progress and well-being.
It's such a powerful point to highlight that.
And I find it fascinating that you're such like a high achieving guy. You're fit. You're handsome as fuck. It's a good thing we're across the world from each other, else my girlfriend would probably be worried. You do all these cool sports. You played rugby at a high level. Like, you got this cool business that's impacting people, and yet you still are like, oh shit, I'm lacking supportive people around this one part of my life.
Yeah, it
just seems like that never ends.
It literally doesn't end. And sometimes it's not, you might need to freshen up your environment once again, just for a different perspective. Or once again, when you become comfortable in things, you need to shake it up. You need that to continue to push into what's uncomfortable, because otherwise, we see it all the time where people create, and it's one thing that I'm very mindful of. In Australia, I was probably one of the first really pushing men's work. From what obviously there's heaps, but like, I guess through the social media channels. And I've never wanted to become stale and just rest on, what I was doing 4 years ago, which is why I've continued to involve how we do things and what we talk about and what I learn. And once again, like, having that conversation with you earlier has given me the kick up the arse to go, look, you have been becoming a little bit comfortable in certain aspects that are holding back your reach and holding back who you can help. And there's men all over the world that need this. Yeah,
I was like, you're doing great, your content's awesome, but here's a way you can do it even better.
Yeah,
and I need that in my relationships. I need that with my health. I need that as a man. I need that quite a bit. And I think men in particular respond well to that healthy challenge. And I see guys coming into Mensgroup, 300-pound biker bros, or like dudes calling in from jail, or like all sorts of weird scenarios. Just all different kinds of guys, and they all do well with that. Just having a group of guys to say, here's what I'm facing in my life, and then have those guys point out blind spots and share perspectives they may not have considered. It doesn't seem like there's a man alive that can't benefit from that kind of community.
Definitely. And I also, just to add something else to that, Sean, I feel even people who are listening to this podcast here, how we communicate and how we articulate what we're feeling or what we're experiencing or delivering feedback is so important. I the reason why I did Toastmasters, I was a terrible communicator. I've still got one of the very first videos I put up on social media when I was working as a laborer, and I mumbled. I used poor wording. I still remember I was at a pub when I just met my wife, and this gentleman was talking to me, and I can't remember what he asked me, but my response was, "Oh, it's just fucking fucked." That's how they were my adjectives at the time.
Yeah.
And he just said,
similar to today.
Yeah, very similar to today.
Those are usually my adjectives.
I use a few more filling words. Yeah. But he's like, why don't you tell me what you really mean? Stop using fucking fucks. And I was furious at that point in time. Like, I didn't know how to respond to that. So I reacted, and I was like, I want to, like, part of me wants to just pop you on the nose, mate, because don't pull me up on that.
Yeah.
But still, this is 8 years later, and I still remember that moment. And that guy calling me on that has had a huge impact on who I am as an individual now. And he probably doesn't even know it, because I have no idea who the bloke was.
Just for that one piece of feedback. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that another thing, and I'm sure they get from tuning into Mensgroup and having the conversations, or even just sitting in on the conversations, it helps them learn to articulate what they're feeling or what's actually going on in their life to a point where they can talk about it.
Yeah, guys say we do exit surveys when guys leave. We either get them on the phone or we get them to fill out a form. And that is the number one way they say they've grown from being in a community or in a men's group, is that they got to observe. Not only did they get feedback on their own stuff with the issue that they're facing, but they got to observe how other guys talk and support each other and give feedback in healthy ways. And then they are able to, and this is their words, they've been able to apply that to their relationship, to their kids, which I find incredibly moving, because fuck, if my dad had something like this, man.
It's a beautiful thing. I'm very excited for myself included, yourself, Sean, but also just men from all walks of life who are open to improving elements of ourselves, because none of us are perfect. And as we've sort of touched on here, you can get to what you believe is the pinnacle of whatever you're striving towards. And once you get there, you can still find areas or elements or skills that you need to improve on to allow yourself to have more of an impact, or to feel more content in your own life, or more fulfilled. Like, the work never stops.
No.
And what we have to learn from each other is, there's the ability to learn through textbooks and all of that sort of stuff. But one of the most underutilized ways to gain knowledge and perspective is through other people's experiences, because generally that's when you're going to get, I look at like black and white. It's like you read a how-to script on a piece of paper. They don't tell you what you're going to feel or think in that. But when you're talking to a bloke who's like, mate, I actually pursued something similar to that, and I didn't quite do it because my wife was saying, we can't take that risk. And I'm like, I never considered that. I'm married. Maybe my wife might bring that up. And so we get all these other real life things that could potentially happen from blokes who go, this is how I felt. This was what held me back, or this is what propelled me forward. And you're getting prepared for these things in a way that, a lot of the time you may not get from a how-to textbook or something like that.
Context, there's a lot more subtlety. There's a lot more like also direct feedback on the unique variables that you have in your situation. From like a how-to, it gives you the steps, but like there's always something that's different about, or at least feels different about what you're facing,
Exactly.
So I agree with that. And speaking of feedback, I think that's a great topic to get into. Defensiveness comes up a lot in men's group. Defensiveness. And I love what you just said about how like that openness to feedback is like so key to growth. But a lot of guys have this knee-jerk response to get defensive anytime there's any feedback offered. And you just shared a great story where you got some humbling feedback. I got a great story as well that I can share in a few minutes, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on defensiveness and how that hurts guys and what they can do about it.
For me personally, it caused me to react a lot of the time because I wasn't aware of it and I wasn't open to receiving feedback. I think because it highlighted where I could improve. And at that point in my life, I was coming from a victim mindset. I loved being able to blame other people or other things as to why my life wasn't going the way that, maybe in the back of my mind, I wanted it to go. I'd lost the opportunity to play rugby in France. I'd come back and I was just so upset at the world. I felt like it owed me stuff because throughout school I had done very well and people were always talking about where I would be, and probably I had that ingrained in my head that I should be here. I was entitled, and I never really realized that. And then when people started, some people just were there to pat you on the back and go, yes, yeah, Lachie, that's exactly right, and sort of fueled my victimhood, which didn't improve my quality of life at all. But when people started calling me on it, it was uncomfortable as all buggery. And it was, I didn't want to have to look at myself in the way that, well, with how my life actually was.
Well, what's the backstory there? So you were supposed to play rugby in France because you're playing at a very high level. Give the short version of the story.
Moving to France was the second opportunity to play at a high level. And I just sabotaged it because I ran away originally. The reason why I went to France was a relationship breakdown. I was like, right, well, I'm going to go back to playing top level footy at the hope that she wants me back or I become famous or whatever it is. And what happened after being there was I realized that, shit, I'm in a completely different country. I don't speak French and all the same stuff is popping up. I don't like who I am. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm jealous as all fuck. Mm-hmm. So let's just go to the drugs. Let's just go to the alcohol and the porn even. That just makes me feel really good. Or it helps me avoid what's really there. So there was parts that I didn't want to deal with within myself. And so I think when there's, people provide feedback and they maybe don't deliver it the way that you want it to be delivered, or maybe you're not used to getting feedback because you realize that, hey, I'm not perfect, because I had an idea, once again, a belief that I should be here, whereas I'm here. That was hard to swallow. So I would lash out. I would try to avoid what was in front of me, which wasn't helpful. It just made things worse 99.99% of the time. So learning how to deal with feedback was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had. But that
to not be defensive in the face of feedback, to let it in.
Yeah. Because I had to go, like the feedback you gave me, I was like, I'm all for feedback now, because I can then choose whether I want to take it on board or not. But I truly believe that you're going to deliver something that I'm missing. So I'm definitely open to that. And I think when we learn to stop being defensive, we just need to accept that, hey, if I respect and value this person delivering the feedback, I then am in the driver's or in the position to go, do I want to take that on board and do something about it? Or should I choose to just put that to the side for the time being? And whatever you feel is the right next step, do that. But so many of us never get any feedback because we just put that wall straight up, get defensive and go, no, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm perfect. And it's like, I'll walk away from that conversation going to myself, well, I'm not perfect and my life sucks and I'm not happy with who I am. I should have probably listened to that. But my ego then goes, I'm not going to go back and say, hey, sorry, I should have not been defensive.
Yeah, and the defensiveness thing is a funny and unfortunately sabotaging response in general, because like the reason why we are so touchy, at least I see this in myself and I see it in a lot of men in men's groups, the reason why they're so touchy is because there's pain there, because they feel upset about themselves or that topic already. Typically when there's a disproportionately large response to a stimulus like a piece of feedback, it's tapping into some pain that you already feel about yourself. So maybe, if your defensiveness, if defensiveness is something you struggle with, maybe you actually just you already feel insecure in that part of your life, or maybe your dad just was really hard on you, or there's something there that's causing that response. Defensiveness is not a normal response.
Well, it's very similar to what you said earlier, where our negative thoughts or negative feedback sits in the front of our mind more so than the positive affirmations that we get or the positive feedback that we get from people. Like, if someone says, your website sucks or you did terribly, I'm running against 15-year-olds this afternoon, Sean, as I was telling you.
Yeah, to track and field meet, yeah.
If I lose to 15-year-old, I haven't ran a 400-meter race since I was 17. So I'm double their age. But for me, I'm going in with the mindset that this is about me and my own growth and development. If they beat me, they beat me. But previously, I could walk away from this meet and never run again, purely focused on the one bad experience, the one bit of poor feedback that the results are going to show. And once again, that's not even guaranteed yet. Rather than going, okay, well, in the lead up to it, where's my training be? I've had a wedding. I've had all of these things. Like, it's not accurate for where I can potentially get to. And, I heard a great thing a few weeks ago where we may not always necessarily be able to choose our first thought, right, or our first response, but we can sure as shit choose the next one. So I might walk off the track today feeling defeated, feeling like, oh, what a piss weak bloke I am. I just lost to 14 and 15-year-old boys.
Yeah.
That truthfully may be my first thought, because I'll be down on myself. But the second thought I know I'm going to back that up with is, I'm so proud of myself for actually getting back on the track after 17 years and giving that a crack. I can't wait for training on Monday. And I've got those next thoughts prepared based on potentially how I'm going to feel after that race. And so I've decided the feedback that I want to give myself.
You're almost preparing to not be defensive in that case. You're like, you're almost having your mind going into it that you might not get the result you want. You might not hear the thing that you want to hear. And so that's going to leave you open to, the gifts that come from the feedback you might receive from a poor result, or feedback from a coach or another runner or something. 15-year-old kid chirping you as he's like doing laps around you.
Yeah, I'll be the only one with facial hair.
Yeah, totally. So I got this story, your vulnerable story about feedback and the rugby stuff brought to mind this one story for me that I think is relevant, where I got some feedback that was quite confronting, and my impulse was to get defensive, because when I was a younger man in my early mid-20s, I was so defensive because I didn't feel good about myself. I remember I was selling cars, of all things. This is after my first business had failed.
Car salesman.
Yeah, for a little bit, because my first business failed. It put me through bankruptcy. It was a bit of a humbling time. And I was still DJing, and that was going pretty well. So because I wasn't feeling very good about myself, I took on this tendency to be over the top and even a little bit cheesy, and like, my life is great, and yeah, everything's great. And I remember this friend that I was DJing with at the time, who I really looked up to. He's a couple years older than me. He used to get all the girls, and he was just like a real awesome guy in general. At the time, I thought that was cool. And one day I went into the sales office, and he's like, told me some news, and I said, "Oh, that's awesome." And he's like, "Well, I just told you something simple that's not actually that awesome, Sean. Do you want some feedback?" And I was like, "No, not really." And he gave it to me anyway. He's like, "You're coming off as cheesy. You don't have to do that. You don't have to oversell things. You're a likable guy as you are. You're charismatic as you are. You don't need to ramp your energy up all the time." And I walked away to my other salesman friends, and I was like, "What a fucking dick. Can you fucking believe that guy?" And then I went and did the same thing to like a friend, and he said, "Sean, it's true." And I talked to another person. They're like, "Yeah, man, it's true." And then I talked to a coach about it to try to understand it. Coach similar to you. I was working with somebody like you, Lachie. And they're like, "Yeah, you're doing it to overcompensate." And then that led me to this place where now, like, people, the number one label, the number one word I've been given in different exercises where people have to label me as something is genuine. And I wouldn't be at this place where I come off as a very genuine, authentic person had somebody not give me the feedback that I was trying to overcompensate by like being the guy that says that everything's awesome. And my defensiveness was so strong in that moment. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to get around it. So you're right. If you can choose the next thought, it can be extremely beneficial.
You also just touched on one thing that I feel is really important, like off the back of, not being defensive to feedback. It puts you in the driver's seat to take ownership and to change how you're showing up as a man, right? Like you were saying, the feedback was, "Are you a salesy? You're trying to
over the top."
Yeah, cheesy. And now when people are labeling you as say, it's genuine. And I would say the same thing. And so, yeah, maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or whenever that was, that's how you were showing up. And many people say the same thing about me when they see how the different direction that I've taken in my life. So many people remember me as a guy who played up on women, used to get in a few punch-ups and lie and manipulate. And that's literally how people would describe me. Whereas now the people in my life who've met me in the last sort of 6 years, and I talk about this openly, they're like, "You're the most calm, chilled person I've ever met. I can't even imagine you getting angry." And I'm like, "Yeah, I still get angry from time to time, but I'm not reactive. I'm not frustrated because I choose who I want to be and how I want to show up."
Yeah.
And that's just coming back to that whole point of really learning to take ownership or take responsibility for who you want to be as an individual, how you're going to show up in your life.
Yeah. Taking responsibility. I want to get into that topic here in a second, taking ownership. Just quickly though, the thing that I've I remembered, I observed a guy in Mensgroup sharing this, and so I'm regurgitating his thing, but you just cued an idea for me, and that is that there's no feedback that's actually threatening. Because whether it's feedback coming from the wrong place, coming from their insecurities, from their fears, the example of my girlfriend getting a response, feedback from her friend when she's talking about starting a business saying, but what about the benefits? What about the security? Whether it's coming from the right place and it's good feedback, or it's not, or it is coming from the right place, and whether it hits the mark or not, it's always a gift. Like there's no negative in that, aside from some uncomfortable feelings that might come up if it hits a sore spot. Because if it comes from somebody who doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about, well, then that's good data on them and where you should, how much you let them in your life. If it is good feedback, it's also good learning, because even though it's a sore spot, you can then improve yourself and improve your experience. So there really isn't any downside to any piece of feedback, with the exception of maybe like somebody giving you negative feedback over and over and over again. That would probably be the negative influence we were talking before from community.
Yep.
Yeah. I just thought that was interesting, because there's just such a negative association with feedback. Even talking about feedback right now, I'm feeling a little angsty.
Especially when you're looking for it, like as I was mentioning, like I'm at a point where I'm really craving it, because I know this year for me is like, I want to break through. I want to go to a whole nother level, and I know I'm not going to do that by myself. Right. And I've got a fitness coach, I've got a business coach, and I've got a marketing strategist, which are all helpful. Right. And they highlight things, pinpoint things, but I also still know that I need to be around people who are really in the trenches in similar businesses as well, because while I have those coaches, I want people who are going through the same shit right now, but are also proactively developing and growing as well, because I'm hungry for feedback. I'm open to any feedback, and I've been getting a whole heap from people. We've been sending out feedback forms around how our community is, and I'm taking everything on board. Because, if I do things my way, I'm missing what the people need, or how people are actually seeing me show up. Because I may have an idea of how I think I'm showing up in the world, but that could be very different to how people are perceiving me.
In a business context, what I've learned from all these businesses I've started is that the thing never becomes what you thought it would. It always takes its own life. People need it. People want your product or service a little bit differently than you thought they would. And if you're not open to feedback, you're going to fail.
You're going to bomb hard.
Yeah. That feedback really defines, it'll push you to success, even if it's uncomfortable in the moment.
100%.
Yeah. Hopefully that helps guys who are defensiveness. One other quick point of defensiveness that I found is that for me, I realized that when somebody gives me feedback and it feels uncomfortable and I get defensive, it's actually a gift, because it's showing me where I'm still holding on to pain, And so the more I've been able to do that, where like if somebody gave me some feedback that was uncomfortable, and I step away and I actually breathe into that, and I can feel those feelings and let them come out. Well, the next time I get feedback on that topic, I'm going to feel a lot less charged. I'm going to feel a lot less touchy, a lot less defensive, because I'm releasing the pressure from that well of pain.
You accept that about yourself now.
Yeah. Slowly start to accept it about myself, or at least just make it so that I can manage the response better. The nervous system holds on to pain. It's just a default of it. And so I think defensiveness, for me, I've seen myself, the more that I can step away when I get defensive and like just breathe and like let those feelings come out, whether they be anger or sadness, in the future, I get less triggered. Have you noticed the same?
Definitely noticed that. You've got to, it's like anything, right? When you become aware of something and you can focus on it and you can decide why you're being intentional with why you're doing a certain thing, you're going to get a better result. You're going to get a better outcome, right? There's people, let's use fitness because a lot of people understand that as well. But there's many people who have gym memberships and who go into the gym with no plan or no structure. They get on there and do a few reps, check their Instagram, and then they walk out into daily life. And then in 3 months, they're like, I haven't built any muscle. My weights are still the same and I've still got my beer gut. Whereas then there's the other group of people who go, I've got 30 minutes. I'm going to maximize this potential. I'm going to get a program made and I'm going to have it moderated. I'm going to check in every week or every month to see how I'm going. And they're generally the people who get greater progress. So if you can do that with feedback and all kinds of things in your life and go, all right, I didn't like how I respond. Let's use a relationship with your partner. When something comes up, you might fly off the handle the first time and walk away. I've done this countless times. Sean, where, you know, it might even sleep in the spare room, and then the next morning I'm crawling back on, I didn't mean that. I was just heightened emotionally. I'm really sorry. But, you know, the work then comes to me to go, why was I triggered? What can I do next time to be able to sit there and just listen to what you know, what's been discussed or spoken about without flying off the rail, because that's me having a tantrum. And so when you actually start thinking about that, you're creating a mind map, right? Or you're creating a vision, and you're letting it play out in your head before it even does. So next time you find yourself in that situation, you can almost have a little smile to yourself because you're like, I've been here before.
Oh, this whole thing. Yeah. Oh, right. This whole thing. Yeah.
And this is what I said how I'm gonna respond better this time.
Yep. Even if you have the same response, at least you're like watching yourself doing it. And yeah, there's that part of you that can be like, oh, this old thing, you know? Meanwhile, over here, it's still like, you know, pretty strong. And yeah, you might not even like, you know, be able to control it that time, but at least that's progress. You're aware of it in real time. You're getting your foot in between the door and, you know, the reaction. It's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah. And really that comes down to taking ownership of your thinking and responses. So I'd love to chat with you about taking ownership, because I know it's a big thing for you. Men and women, people, especially these days, seem to, I don't know if it's a these days thing actually, but a lot of men seem to have trouble taking responsibility for their emotions, for their lives, taking ownership of those things. A lot of people default to blaming, going, this group of people is the problem, that group of people is the problem. Love to hear a bit about taking ownership for men, taking responsibility.
Yeah, I feel like for a lot of the time it comes back to a self-worth thing. I remember for me, like I said, when you're in that victim mindset, it's much easier to blame other people or blame the economy or blame, you know, anything else that comes to mind for you, right? Because it's not a reflection of who I am as an individual. But the moment that I started building, you know, I realized that, hey, in order for me to get where I want to in life, I have to start taking responsibility, which means I have to accept responsibility for, you know, when I have all the success, I can, you know, don't blow my head up, but just go, look, that's a result of the hard work and everything that you've put in place to achieve that. But it also means I have to accept and take responsibility for the shit. Mm-hmm. Right, for my bad behaviors, how I've treated people, maybe addictions that I have that I need to overcome, my lying, my manipulating. I had to own that. And for me, it was very freeing to talk about that and publicly, you know, but on my social media, talk about that. That was me taking off a weight vest and just going, look, this is it. And it's a part of who I have been, but it's not going to be a part of me moving forward. If I could change it, probably not, because it's taught me some powerful things that I believe can help other people. But ever since I've been in control, I also know, you know, there's a great quote where it's, and this works really well within relationships, but also many things in your life. It's you may be 50% of the problem, but you can be 100% of the solution. Mm. So it's asking yourself, well, what can I do right now in this moment to make this or to achieve this? And I continue to come from that mindset now, because once again, I know that no one's going to change how I feel. Nothing's going to change how I feel. Nothing's going to give me the lifestyle that I want. Or, you know, it's many people go, when I achieve this or when I earn this much, I'll then do this. It's like, no, you fucking won't. Yeah. It's a facade. It's an idea. You need to start doing that now by making time. It's going back to someone who wants to change their health. Have you started scheduling it in your diary? Or are you just hoping that by, or, you know, you're not tracking your calories, for example? Some people need to track their calories because what you track, you can improve. If you're just hoping that, you know, you're going to eat a few greens and have your healthy drinks and stuff, or whatever, your protein supplements, and you're going to lose weight, you're still, once again, trying to throw a Hail Mary. Like, take ownership, track it, give yourself feedback, and then at a certain period of time, it might be 12 weeks, it might be 1 month, you can review and go, what actions am I currently taking that I feel are working really well for me? And what actions am I currently taking that, you know, could be improved upon or just removed completely? Because we're all very busy. Mm. There's the Pareto law, the 80-20 law. It's like you'll get 80% of your results from 20% of your actions. So think about that, and that can go to your relationship, right? Like how many people let's talk, I guess, wind this into taking responsibility and ownership within a relationship. We have that initial period, Sean, that honeymoon phase is what we call it over in Australia, where it's so exciting,
Oh, it's the best.
It's very intimate. Everything's exciting. Everything's new. And then you get to a period where you start to get comfortable. And when you become comfortable, you start to notice the things that, you nitpick things that irritate you. Or you stop doing the things that you originally did, like the kiss on the forehead when you go into work or whatever those things are. And the whole dynamic of your relationship changes. And the truth is, it's because you've stopped taking responsibility for how you want your relationship to be. You become passive. You become a passenger, right? You're just expecting the relationship to maintain the energy that it had or to continue to go in the same way it has without putting any fucking thought into it.
I guess that's why it's so many people default to not taking responsibility and to blaming or to just accepting mediocrity, is that like it's more work to it's fucking work to take ownership and to in this example put the work in to keep the relationship moving in the direction that you want it to be. It's more work to accept that you might have had a role in the relationship demise even if you got cheated on. But the fruits of that are tenfold, right? So I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it I've seen in my own life, it's worth it to take that responsibility, even though it's difficult.
Yeah. Just ask yourself, what are my wants from life? What are my needs? What are my desires? What are my aspirations? What do I really want? And what has to happen, or who do I need to become in order to get there, right? I want to, when I was at rock bottom, I was a terrible communicator. I had never run a business or done business before in my life. All I'd ever really focused on was sport. But I had an idea that, hey, I want to have some of the things that sport could have provided me, which is the flexibility, a good income, a bit of acceptance and validation in my life, which are important values to me still. So how can I do that then through the next chapter of my life? And I was like, business, running my own business. In the first year, Sean, I was like, I'm going to make $1 million. How hard can this be?
It was easy.
Yeah, exactly. And I learned very quickly that there was a lot of stuff that I had to work on, a lot of inner stuff like limiting beliefs and ways that I spoke to myself. A lot of that sort of stuff I had to address. But then also I had to address things outside of that, skill development, network, who I surrounded myself with, systems, processes, marketing, brand building, all of these things that I had no idea, and I still got so much to learn. But I was like, well, no one's going to fucking do that for me unless I employ people. But obviously when you're starting out, you don't have the capital or that. So I was like, all right, I need to invest time into this. Where can I go? Well, YouTube's a good place to start. I can invest in mentors. I can attend seminars to do that. But I learned that very early on that no one was going to do that. But should I still want to, but should I remain focused on that, which is what I've done to this point. That's the reason why my business is the way it is, because as much as I have a drive and purpose and passion behind why I get up every day and do what I do, and I love it, it still also affords me flexibility. It still affords me to hang out with fucking incredible people all day. Like, these are things that regardless of if I had my business or not, I would still be pursuing.
Yes.
And that's something that's been really important to me. And you don't just get it. Like, a lot of people just think, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur today, or I'm going to start my gym and in 2 weeks I'm going to have my six pack. No, you've got years of things that you need to unlearn, and then you've got new things that you need to learn. And that takes time and enjoy. Like, you've got to learn to enjoy that process. But what are you doing it for?
How can guys begin to take ownership? How can they, if they catch themselves blaming other people for their issues, or, using scapegoats, or not taking ownership and for the results that they're seeing in their lives? Where do they start?
The first place would be to acknowledge that, and acknowledge that it's going to take time. I still blame people. I still blame things. The only difference is now I'm aware of that, and I understand that I don't want to accept that in my life. so I can change that quickly. So you be kind to yourself. Understand that if let's say if you're 40 right now and you're listening to this, and you've spent the majority of your life, let's say at least 25 years, blaming everything else that you don't have control over, it's going to take time. Don't expect radical changes in 3 months because you're fighting against 25 years of habitual thought processes and patterns. But the first thing is just acknowledge it. Acknowledge, hey, this is how I may show up in my life, and I don't want to do that anymore. So when I catch myself doing that, give myself a buffer zone to change that. How would I choose to respond in the future? Right? What would be an action? So the cause and effect principle. Right? You're at the effect of everything else. I could say, you could say, oh, my partner, she or he continues to, do this and it really fucking ticks me off. So you're at the effect of their behavior. How can you get into the position where you're taking ownership for that? It could be, I'll use the dishes. I don't know why, because I'm the dish pig in our house. Yeah. But if I get to the sink and the dishes aren't done, I could get frustrated by that. Or I could take ownership in a few ways. I could say, hey, I'm going to start doing the dishes now. I'll just do them. It's 1 or 2 plates, rather than allowing that anger to get in the way of our relationship or to fucking just derail my day. Or 2, I could sit down with my partner and say, hey, look, one of the things that's been a bit of a challenge for me at the moment, or it's really causing me some frustration, is every time I get home, there's dirty plates beside the sink. Is there a reason why you're not cleaning up after yourself? Or is it something that we can put a standard in place that we do clean up after ourselves? And that way you're addressing it and taking ownership. So think about, 1, acknowledge what you need to take ownership for, and acknowledge that it's going to take time. Understand why it's important for you and how that's going to improve your quality of life should you choose to start taking ownership. Also understand that it can be hard. Like, some things you'll find really easy to take responsibility for. Other things might force you to look at yourself in a way that maybe you've been avoiding for a very, very, very long time. So understand that. But once you can then accept that, which would be number 3, accept that, hey, this is something that I know is going to add so much value to my life. It may mean I have to start changing how I think about myself. It may mean I have to address how I've been showing up or how I've been thinking or treating people, but I'm prepared to do that. And then just think about, okay, well, what does taking action look like in this situation? And then, like anything that you want to change, create a plan to do that, and then follow the plan and review and go from there.
You coach a lot of men, and you coach a lot of men that are successful in a lot of their lives, but they're going through breakups and stuff like that. And I think our recent chat about taking ownership is a part of this. But you have any advice for guys out there who are going through divorces, breakups, infidelities, how to handle it in a healthy way?
Yeah, 2021 was a crazy year. Like, there was 6 groups in my 6 blokes in my inner circle that I see every week that went through divorces this year, which was fucking mind-blowing. Like, that's in my inner circle. And it can be very challenging. And two of the guys in this situation, their partners had been playing up on them. So that can give you a big kick in the dick. Yeah. Like, it's not very nice for the self-esteem or the self-confidence. Yeah. But one of the most important things, and because it's very easy, and I've never been through a divorce, but from relationship breakdown, to get very spiteful and to want to get revenge in this way. And that's, once again, you reacting, not responding. So the first thing I would suggest is, how do you want to respond through this? What standard are you setting for yourself, and how do you want to conduct yourself through what's about to come? It's not going to be fucking easy. And I can't imagine what a divorce would feel like, especially if there's kids involved or properties or whatever. Like, it's going to be very, very challenging. So secondly would be having a good support group around you. The most important thing that we do is I link, like, some of these guys are in a really good position now, like mentally and emotionally, but I've been able to then connect those with some of the other guys who are, within the last sort of 6 months, and go, hey, bro, Johnny, for example, went through this at the beginning of the year. I'd love to link you guys up so he can share what his experiences were like, his thoughts, his emotions, and everything that he went through there. Because I personally, can't truly understand what it's like for you. So being connected to people who have been through very similar things, but it's also, if you're focusing on, because one of the guys, for example, was like, oh, we'd planned to do this next year and we're going to do that, and now that's never going to happen. And if we focus on the things that aren't going to happen, we forget about what we have. And there's still, going back to the practice of gratitude, and once again, easier said than done when you're going through trauma and you're going through pain. But if that's something you can continue to work on focusing on, you're going to go, okay, well, but I do have this. I do have my health. I do have great mates. Life is going to be great for me because, once again, I'm in control of where it goes from here. I'm entitled to mourn and to feel sad and everything that I'm experiencing right now, because that's fucking normal for what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's no time limit on that, but it's also you want to get yourself to a point where, the value within that you have as an individual, and there's going to be someone out there, or there's going to be moments in your life moving forward that are going to, make your life 10 times better. Mm-hmm. It's just patience. Yeah,
it's really going to serve you moving forward if you take the time to feel all the things and to deal with it in healthy ways. That's what I'd like to encourage guys with as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. Lachie, you got to bounce, so we can have another chat another time and get into some more great topics. Your academy's coming live here shortly. I love what you do. You're such a great coach. I would love to hear more about that here.
We run the Strong Men of Value Academy.
Strong Men of Value?
Strong Men of Value, yeah. Because I'm really focused on helping men build strong minds and strong bodies, because I believe that's been so important in my own development as a man. And essentially, we do 3 intakes a year just so we can build a solid community and everyone's sort of working together through that. But the whole goal is to decide on something that you want to improve, and we work on 8 areas in life. And you set the goal for the week, so for the 12 weeks. Within that, you get put in your accountability group. So you build a tribe of blokes, like-minded blokes who really buy and get invested into you achieving your goals, and vice versa. But you've also got, let's say there's 10 in one group. 10 different life experiences and perspectives on how you can move through things, maybe once again identifying those blind spots and working through. So we meet weekly, we check in with your goal, what's going well, have you fallen off the wagon, what you're excited about, and week upon week you should be moving towards your goals. And then we have guest speakers and tasks to help you, I guess, understand and implement things that you're learning, because we go through a structured thing on sort of understanding who you are as an individual, what's your why, what do you want from your life, and there's tasks. So, for example, a good task around learning to respond rather than react is cold shower or ice bath. Right? It's a practical thing that you can do to see how you respond in the face of something that's uncomfortable. Do you fucking jump straight out, or do you just go, all right, I'm going to focus on what I control here. Let me focus on my breath and just understand that this will pass. And so for everything that we do every week, there's physical challenges aligned to help you really understand the mental and emotional learning there, which is pretty exciting. So that our next intake is, we've got one in April, and our January one closes on tomorrow, Australian time.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
I hope this episode will come out before then.
Yeah, if not the April one, but people can just follow the podcast, because I feel, I talk about a lot of what we do and have incredible guests like yourself on there to provide tools and perspectives that are going to help men realize that what they're going through is normal, and hopefully spark some thoughts that can help you become the best version of yourself.
Yeah, I love your podcast. It's the Man That Can Project, right?
Yeah, the Man That Can Project podcast is very long-winded, isn't it?
Yeah. But I love that, the Man That Can. Yeah, and I love how you talk about this stuff. So I really appreciate you being here, Lachie, and looking forward to chatting again soon. I'd love to have you on again to talk about a bunch of different topics, all the common stuff we get: boundaries, porn addiction, all these unhealthy communities for men. Yeah, appreciate the time, man.
I really appreciate you having me on, brother, and what you're creating is honestly so phenomenal and so needed. And I'm, for all of your members listening now, like they're so grateful that you just went first to create this. But everyone who's listening to this as well, you're as vital a part of the community as we all are.
Yeah, I mean, it takes guys to make the community, and takes guys to be engaged and to want to step up and have these conversations, and it's happening. So yeah, and as always, if you're listening to this, we got free men's groups you can check out over at mensgroup.com. You can join our free discussion community, check out a men's group, see how it feels to you, and go check out the Man That Can project.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me on. Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachie Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.